Hey, hey, my joyful people, what's happening? It's Kimberly. Hope things are going well for you guys. Sorry again that I'm coming in a little bit later, but I am here with a complicated situation. But you know, I always try to make it light and make it easy to understand. So that's my big thing right now, is that I'm coming to you to try to break down digestion. All right. So I want you to understand that when you start eating, hey, Angela, how are you? When you start eating and chewing, digestion starts in the mouth. All right. And what most people do is they skip. We're so busy, we're running, we're eating fast, on the run, we're doing things really, really quickly. And so we just throw something in our mouth, we chew for a hot second, and we swallow. We have missed the first stage of digestion, all right? First stage of digestion is mastication. That's just chewing. That's the mechanical side of it. But then there is a chemical side of it, and basically your taste buds will stimulate your saliva in your mouth. Now, the saliva in your mouth is also going to moisten the food, so that's good. But the first enzyme and the first phase of that natural digestion comes from the enzymes that are in your saliva. And that enzyme starts to break down your carbs. Hey, Aunt Tama, how you doing? It's good to see you. So it breaks down the carbs first. So that's the one thing. The first phase is natural digestion. So the salivary amylase is what it's called, breaks down and digests the complex carbs into starches, or the starches into simple sugars or glucose for the body to use. So chew your food, people, okay? Take time and chew the food, because if we're swallowing like half the hamburger without actually breaking down the carbohydrates and the protein, we're missing a part of digestion, and we wonder why our stomachs hurt and why we have, you know, rotting food in our gut and things like that I've talked about that have led to leaky gut and things that people are dealing with. So chewing the food is number one. And some people say, well, how much do I chew? You really are supposed to chew until it is almost like liquid in your mouth. And that's why last week I was telling you that digestive enzymes help, because if you don't happen to chew your food properly, guess what? Now you have big food particles that have to be broken down. So that's the next thing. Your body is really, really smart. And you have your palate raises when you swallow, which actually closes the navel cavity. So now you're not getting food down your nose unless, you know, someone makes you laugh, and then we've all been there. And then also you have your epiglottis, which will actually cover your trachea, and that's the respiratory tract. So now you're not getting anything down, like when you sometimes do something quickly and the saliva goes down the wrong pipe or whatever, and you feel like you're choking or drowning. That's from that not being the epiglottis, I can't say it, not covering your trachea. All right, so now the muscles squeeze and push the food down through the esophagus into the stomach. And the stomach has a thick liquid that's in it, and that gastric juice is very acidic. It has a pH level between 1 and 4. I mean, it would eat through your skin. And that's why people who tend to throw up or do things like that can sometimes have burning of the esophagus because of the stomach acid coming up. There's supposed to be a flap that's there. So we think about heartburn and how that feels and all of that. That flap, if that stomach acid starts coming up, you get that horrible feeling right in your chest. So pepsin breaks down the proteins. So what happens is once it's in the stomach, those juices that are in there start to break down the proteins. So remember, you got to start chewing, get it broken down, so that now once it's down in the stomach, it actually starts to break that down. And there's a muscle that allows for a little food at a time to be released into the small intestines. All right. So there's a little muscle contraction that as it's breaking down, and really it's about 1 to 4 hours after your food, after you eat, that release starts to happen into your small intestines from your stomach. So that little itty bitty flap, it's like a spasm of that, will actually release. Then it hits, guess what? After that, it hits the liver and the pancreas. So people are like, okay, so Kim, I'm giving you guys just a breakdown, layman's term, how you're going from your mouth to eating, to all of the things that are happening in there with digestion, all the way out through your anus, which we'll finish at that point. So it hits the liver, goes to the pancreas, the largest gland in the body. All right, the liver is the largest gland in the body. The liver wraps around the gallbladder. So people are like, okay, what is happening? You hear about gallstones, you hear about, people having their gallbladders removed. Well, that is a small pear-shaped structure, your gallbladder, and basically the liver secretes something that's called bile, like the duct in the bile. So it's diluted bile that comes out and it goes into the small intestines to once again help break down fats. Bile helps to emulsify fats. Now people say, well, what does that mean? So when you eat almonds or you eat avocado or you eat fatty foods that aren't the healthy fatty foods, your body is trying to actually shake it up like salad dressing, where you put water and you put oil together and you try to shake it up, or you put it in a blender and it spins really, really fast and it emulsifies, and it actually will allow your body so that the fats, that they get suspended in the water so that you can digest them. All right. Without it, it sits there. So that's why when people have their gallbladders removed, they have a really hard time processing fats. So they end up having to take bile salts or do different things. That's a whole nother subject, but I'm just giving you a little piece of that. So now your pancreas. Okay, so we've got all of that. We've gone through the liver and the gallbladder. Now we're going to the pancreas, which is a triangular shape entity that begins at the larger end of the stomach and the small intestine, and it gets smaller. So it's like an upside down triangle. You'd have to look at the anatomy, but you'll see it. And that basically releases juices that break down the fats and long carbs. All right. So your pancreas is very important in that final stage of digestion. And what happens is that your small intestines is primary site for the absorption of all minerals into the body and vitamins and food and the food molecules into your cells. So a lot of people don't realize that process is where you find the leaky gut situation. So you have big food particles and big pieces of protein. Remember, I told you about the proteins being broken down in the stomach. Well, if you have an allergic reaction to a protein because your small intestines have been compromised by a leaky gut, medication, wrong foods, things that have happened with alcohol, drugs, or it becomes permeable instead of impermeable. Now those proteins that didn't get broken down into the stomach properly because you didn't chew to start, or you're not taking your digestive enzymes to help, end up going into the bloodstream and causing all kinds of allergic reactions. So that's a piece of understanding there. And then the rest of it goes into the large intestines, and the large intestines really are responsible for water absorption of anything else that doesn't go through and hasn't been absorbed in the small intestines. And then the waste material that your body does not use, that it doesn't need, of course, forms in the colon into your feces, and then your feces are eliminated through your rectum. And at that point in time, there's one more piece in this digestion equation that people think is kind of like, we don't need it anymore, which is our appendix. They say, oh, your appendix burst, we take it out, it doesn't matter. Well, research is starting to show that the appendix is actually responsible for a lot of your immunity. So that was my quick and dirty kind of like what happens to food when it hits your mouth. I was finding out last week when people were watching and I was talking about digestive enzymes that they didn't even understand the digestive process. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to share some joy and help you in layman's terms understand the digestive process. Of course, I had my trusty notes because I never want to get off track. But if you're concerned about rebuilding your digestive system because it has been compromised, I've done a few videos on bone broth, or at least one I know for sure. And I've also posted some articles on my Do All Things with Joy page on Facebook. You can also check me out on Do All Things with Joy on YouTube, which has all of the past videos on there. So you can check that out and find the bone broth. Bone broth actually will help to heal the parts of the small intestines that have been damaged. And so now you won't have that leakage, because remember, the small intestines is where the body absorbs most of the minerals for the food. So I know this has been more scientific today. It's not necessarily like some new product or something. And I promise this is my last week for a while on digestion and IBS and all that kind of good stuff that I have healed from. But I wanted you guys to understand digestion just in a little bit of a more clear and concise way. So I appreciate everybody who has tuned in. Remember to do what? Share the joy. And if you guys have any questions while I'm on, you can type one in. This is not just about, me kind of teaching, but if you guys have anything you want to say and talk to me right now, I'm here. But I hope that you enjoyed learning about your digestive system in a really simple and pretty quick way. And I encourage you to share this with someone else, especially if they're having questions about what's going on and why stuff might be going awry. All right.
peace and blessings, since I don't see any questions, and you guys remember to do all things with joy. Bye.